Hello everyone, this week we will also cover Chapter 3, Demand, Supply and Market Equilibrium. These are really important concepts that you need to learn because most principles of economics and how free markets function depends on your understanding of demand, supply and the market equilibrium. So what we are going to cover this chapter, we will cover markets, demand, supply, market equilibrium, and then we will understand changes in supply, demand and how these changes affect the market equilibrium. And the application is going to be government set prices. Let's start with the markets. Market definition should be easy for you because we are actually coming across with different markets in our daily life. So in this course, the focus is on markets that are competitive. This requires large numbers of buyers and sellers acting independently. And markets may be local, national and international. An example of a local market is the farmers market that brings together buyers and sellers of produce in the summer. An example of the national market is the US real estate market, and New York Stock Exchange is an international market. Let's start with the demand. So to be part of demand for a good, consumers have to be willing and able to purchase the good. When we drive the demand, we assume that the only factor that causes consumers to buy more or less is the price of the good. So, which is true when you go to the grocery store or some other stores, the first thing when you want to buy your favorite cereal is to check the price. So for that reason, price is the main determinant. And when we drive the demand, we are actually trying to find out the relation price and consumers' willingness and ability to buy, assuming that other things are equal. So what are these other things? These are other determinants which can affect your buying decisions, such as your income, your preference, price of other goods available in the market, and so on. So it's assumed that all other factors that influence the amount that consumers will buy are constant. So your income doesn't change, price of related goods doesn't change, and so on. And the market demand is derived by summing the individual's demand curve. Here you will see an important concept, which is the law of demand. What is law of demand? This is the inverse relation between price and quantity demanded. In real life, prices act as obstacles for buyers and keep them from being able to buy everything that they want. So it makes sense that with a limited income, all we have, consumers will buy more at lower prices. And here I want to also introduce you the law of diminishing marginal utility. So as I said in the previous lectures, we assign a satisfaction, a number to goods we consume. So diminishing marginal utility refers to the decrease in added satisfaction that results as one consumes additional units of a good or service. So for instance, you're too hungry, Big Mac is going to give you a lot of satisfaction, but second Big Mac is going to yield less extra satisfaction or utility than the first one. Because additional units yield less utility, the price has to be lower to make up for this less utility. So you are willing to buy the second Big Mac at a lower price. And we need to talk about two important concepts related to demand, income effect and substitution effect. The income effect occurs as a lower price increases the purchasing power of money income. So when prices are getting lower because of the income effect, you want to buy more of the good because you can. So income effect enables the consumer to buy more at a lower price without having to reduce consumption of other goods. On the other hand, the substitution effect is when a lower price gives an incentive to substitute the lower price good for now relatively higher price goods. Now let's talk about the demand curve. The demand curve illustrates the inverse relationship between price and quantity. And as you see, the demand curve on the screen is downward sloping. And the downward slope indicates a lower quantity, which you see here, like from 2010. And they are actually associated with higher prices. Let's say 5 is the price, quantity is 10. And when the price is 4, quantity is 20. That's because of downward sloping demand curve. And here, this one is the schedule that shows the relation. As the price is going down, you would like to buy more. And here is the demand curve, and that shows again law of demand. Now on the screen, you see the market demand curve, and there are three buyers, Joe, Jen, and Jay. And this is the market for gasoline. The market demand is the horizontal summation of the individual demand curves of all of the customers in the market. So for instance, at a price of $3, to find the market demand curve, you sum 35, 39 and 26 and you find 100 per week. And let's briefly talk about changes in demand. So we have, as I said, the main determinant of demand is the price. Which price? Price of the good itself. So if this is the gasoline market, when I say price, price of gasoline I'm referring to. And here is the quantity of gasoline. So when the price changes, you're not moving the demand curve, right? You're not shifting the demand curve, but what you do is, let's say price is $4 and price increased to $5, you're just moving along the curve to understand the changes in quantity demanded, 4 to 2. And the same is true when the price decreases. Let's say price decreases to $3, you move down here, and therefore the quantity is demanded is determined on the horizontal axis. But as I said, price is the main determinant. There are other things. Other things that we are going to learn actually is going to shift the demand curve. If other things changes while the price is constant, they are going to shift the demand curve to the right or to the left. A right represents increase in demand, a left represents decrease in demand. So what are these other things? Other things are change in consumer taste and preferences. When most consumers experience the same change in taste for a particular good, the demand for the good will change. If there is a preferable change in taste, demand will increase. On the other hand, if there is an unfavorable change in taste, demand will fall. Second one is change in the number of buyers. So if there are more buyers in the market for a good, demand will increase, whereas when there are fewer buyers in the market for a good, demand will decrease. And the next one is change in income. Buyers' income may change, but we have two types of good based on consumers' behavior when their income changes. The first one is the normal goods. Normal goods are goods that we buy more as our income increase. Most of the goods that we buy are actually normal goods, and we buy fewer normal goods when our income decreases. Inferior goods, on the other hand, are goods we buy more of as our income decreases, and we buy fewer inferior goods if our income increases. So let's continue with the determinants of demand. Next one is change in prices of related goods. Again, we have two types of goods. When I say price of related goods, for instance, if we talk about gasoline market, I'm talking about other goods available in the market, but they are related, like cars. Cars are related because they use gasoline. And now we have two types of good in that category, substitute goods and complementary goods. Let's start with the first one. Complementary goods are goods that we consume jointly. It isn't beneficial to have one without its complement. So when the price of one complement increases, the demand for the other complement decreases. And when the price of one complement decreases, the demand for the other complement increases. Some examples could be cell phones and cell phone services, tuition and textbooks. And substitute goods are goods that we use in place of one another. A perfect substitute is a good that we use in place of the other without any loss of satisfaction. And if the price of one good increases, the demand for its substitute increases because now, relatively, the good becomes expensive. You prefer to buy the substitute. If the price of one good decreases, the demand for the other substitute decreases. Some examples are like similar brands, Colgate and Crest toothpaste, Nike and Reebok shoes. And the final determinant of demand is change in consumer expectations. And we have two types of scenarios here, future prices and future income. If consumers expect the future price of a product to be higher, they increase their consumption today because they need to pay more in the future. If consumers expect their future income to rise, they increase purchase now. And the reverse case, if consumers believe their future income will be less, they reduce their demand today. So here are some examples. Change in buyer's taste. For instance, physical fitness rises in popularity. Therefore, there is an increasing demand for jogging shoes and bicycles. Smartphone popularity rises, and that reduces the demand for landline phones. Change in number of buyers. For instance, a decline in birth rate reduces the demand for children's toys. and 600 million additional people on WhatsApp makes it a more attractive communications network. The migration of Californians to Colorado increases the demand for housing in Denver. And an example for change in income: a rise in income increases the demand for normal goods such as restaurant meals, sport tickets, and smartphones, while it reduces the demand for inferior goods such as turnips, bus passes, and cheap wine. And for example, you're a student, maybe you consume a lot of ramen noodles, but once you get a better job, maybe you'll replace ramen noodles with something else. So ramen noodles might be an inferior good for you. Change in the price of related goods, for instance, a reduction in airfares reduces the demand for train transportation because they are substitute. A decline in the price of printers increases the demand for ink cartridges because they are complementary, right? You need to buy ink to use a printer. Change in consumer expectations. Inclement weather in South America creates an expectation of higher future coffee bean prices, thereby increasing today's demand for coffee beans. The expectation that other consumers will rush to buy toilet paper next week as a hurricane approaches causes many consumers to increase their purchase of toilet paper this week. The next topic we will talk about is supply. So to be part of the supply, producers have to be willing and able to produce the good. When creating supply, we are assuming that the only factor that causes firms to produce more or less is the price of the good. And we assume all other factors stays the same, remain the same, and they are not going to influence the production or supply decision. Market supply is created by summing the individual firm's supply curves. Here, again, we have an important law, which is law of supply. Producers are willing to produce and sell more of their product at a high price than at a low price. There is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Given product cost, and cost doesn't change, as you remember we said all other things are the same, a higher price means greater profits because cost doesn't change, and it's an incentive to increase the quantity supply. Beyond some level of output, producers usually encounter increasing costs, but in order to understand law of supply, we assume all other things are the same. So as the price increases, production becomes profitable because cost doesn't change. For that reason, suppliers are willing to supply more to the market. Here is you can find the supply curve, and the first one is the supply schedule. What we see in the schedule, as the prices are going up, quantity supplied increases in the market. And here is the price of gasoline, and as the price of gasoline increases, supply of gasoline to the market increases that direction. That's why it's an upward sloping curve. And now we need to understand changes in supply. As I'm repeating here, when the price of gasoline, which is the gasoline market, let's write it here, gasoline market, as the price increases, you're not going to shift the curve because you can just move, let's say from $2, now the gasoline prices are $3, you move along the curve and the quantity supplied is increasing. But if other determinants, which we are going to talk next, increases or changes, we are going to shift the supply curve to the left or to the right. So right represents this direction is an increase in supply. This direction is a decrease in supply. As you see, the shifts are parallel to the original curve. So what are the determinants of supply? We have first a change in resource prices. So what are resource prices? These are the things that you use in production. For coffee production, labor, store, machine, raw material, all are input prices. So if resource prices go up, assuming that the price of the product stays the same, supply decreases. Why? Because producing the product and selling that product is less profitable because price doesn't change but cost is rising, so the profit is shrinking. And for the reverse case, if the resource prices are going down, supply increases. For technology, if technology advances, supply increases. We do not usually have a scenario that we have a less efficient technology. We usually advance in technology. The third one is tax and subsidy. If taxes are increased on a specific product, supply decreases. If taxes are decreased or eliminated on a specific product, supply increases. Subsidies are reverse of the tax. So if subsidies are increased on a specific product, supply increases. Instead of government is taking money from the businesses, government is subsidizing, giving more money. If subsidies are decreased on a specific product, supply decreases. The fourth one is a change in price of other goods. If the price of another good that the producers could produce with the same resources rises, the supply decreases for the product the producers are currently producing. If the price of another good that producers could produce with the same resources falls, the supply increases for the product the producers are currently producing. And the next one is producers' expectation. This is an important one. I want you to pay attention. If producers expect that the price of the product they are producing will be higher in the future, so the product will be more profitable in the future, they cut back on current supply and supply will decrease. If producers expect the price of the product they are producing will be lower in the future, they increase the current supply to take advantage of the currently higher prices. And finally, a change in the number of sellers. If the number of sellers increases, supply increases. Economic profits in the market draw producers from less profitable markets into this market. If the number of sellers decreases, supply decreases. Economic losses in the market cause producers to leave the market. So let's see some examples. Change in resource prices. A decrease in the price of microchips increases the supply of computers. An increase in the price of crude oil reduces the supply of gasoline. Change in technology. The development of lower cost space launch technology increases the supply of satellite broadband, and improvements in artificial intelligence increase the supply of customer service chatbots. Change in taxes or subsidies. An increase in the excise tax on cigarettes reduces the supply of cigarettes. A decline in the subsidies to state universities reduces the supply of higher education. Tax credits, which is a subsidy for child care, increase the number of daycare centers. A tax on indoor tanning reduces the number of tanning saloons. Change in prices of other goods. For instance, an increase in the price of cucumbers decreases the supply of watermelons. If you are using the same resources, which in this case you are using the same resources, either you grow cucumbers or watermelons. An increase in the price of alcohol-based hand sanitizers causes a decrease in the supply of gin. As you see, both of them are using same resources. Change in producers' expectations. An expectation of a substantial rise in future lumber prices decreases the supply of logs today. The belief that gasoline prices will fall next year increases the supply of oil this year. And finally, change in the number of suppliers. An increase in the number of tattoo parlors increases the supply of tattoos. The formation of women's professional basketball league increases the supply of women's professional basketball games. And next we talk about the equilibrium. So what is the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity? The equilibrium price is also known as market clearing price. And when you look at graphically here, equilibrium price is the intersection of supply and demand. So why this is important? Important because at equilibrium price, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. So there is no shortage or surplus in the market. For instance, the markets could start with a price like $2. At $2, as you see here, the quantity supplied is 4,000 of gallons of gasoline per week, and quantity demanded is here, 11,000. And therefore, we have a shortage. Why? Because quantity demanded, which is 11, is greater than quantity supplied, which is 4. And we do not like the situation because we have people waiting in the line to get gasoline. And what is going to happen in that scenario? The prices are going to increase. As the prices are increasing, some people are going to buy less gasoline, and more gasoline will be supplied to the market until we reach the equilibrium. At $3, we have 7,000 per week, which is equal to quantity supplied and as well as quantity demanded. And it's possible that prices might be too high or set above the equilibrium. In that case, we have quantity demanded of 4,000 gallons and we have quantity supplied of 10,000. Again, there is a mismatch, but this time quantity supplied, which is 10, greater than quantity demanded, which is 4. This is a situation for surplus. When we have surplus of gasoline that's not sold in the market, the prices will go down. As the price is going down, people are going to buy more gasoline and firms are going to supply less gasoline to the market. So that's why equilibrium price is important. Why? Because equilibrium price are economically efficient. So what is efficiency? First, we will define the productive efficiency. Competitive markets generate productive efficiency, that is the production of any particular good in the least costly way. So that is the key point, least costly way. And they use the best technology and they use the right mix of resources. So there is going to be no left resources. All resources are used efficiently. Sellers that do not achieve the least cost combination of inputs will be unprofitable and have difficulty competing in the market. They will be forced to leave the market. And also competitive process generates allocative efficiency, which is producing the combinations of goods and services most valued by the society. Allocative efficiency requires that there will be productive efficiency. So for allocative efficiency, we know that we are using the right mix of the goods. Productive efficiency, on the other hand, can occur without allocative efficiency. So you can use the right mix of the goods, you can use the least costly way and best technology, but the outcome may not be the one that is desired the most by the society. And when we look at the equilibrium price here, allocative efficiency and productive efficiency occur in a competitive market because resources are neither over-allocated nor under-allocated based on society's wants. So rationing function of prices is important. Prices automatically rise and fall and bring a market closer to equilibrium. Prices are the best tool for eliminating market shortages and surplus. So let's look at changes in demand and equilibrium. These are important. So it is possible that an event may change the demand for an increase or for a decrease. So for instance, let's say we start with an equilibrium price here, this point, and we have a price P1 and Q1. And let's assume this is the coffee market. And the doctors start talking on TV shows saying that coffee is very healthy for your heart. And what is going to happen in this case? The taste for coffee is going to change. People are going to buy coffee because of health reasons. And therefore, the demand for coffee is going to increase as the demand shifts from D1 to D2. And now we will have a new equilibrium price and quantity in the market. And the new equilibrium price and quantity is going to be the intersection of D2 and S. S doesn't change. The only thing that's changing is the taste preferences of consumers. And the supply is going to adjust, but first demand shifts to the right. And we have higher prices, the coffee prices will be higher, and more coffees are going to be bought and sold in the market. So let's continue with the coffee market. This time, let's assume price of tea decreases, price of tea. Now, tea is relatively much cheaper compared to coffee. So what is going to happen? Price of related good is one of the determinants of demand. But now the price of tea is much cheaper. Some of the coffee consumers are not very fan of maybe coffee. They will reduce their consumption. As some people in the market reducing their consumption, the demand curve is going to shift to the left. So initially we were here P1 and Q1. Because of the change in demand, supply doesn't. Supply is actually changing through the price. As the demand decreases, prices for coffee is decreasing and the quantities bought and sold in the market is decreasing, and we have a new equilibrium price. Now let's understand changes in supply and equilibrium. Again, let's continue with the coffee market. And in the first scenario, let's assume that here we are talking about coffee shops in the market which are supplying coffee, cup of coffee. And the event is a new technology enables coffee shops to produce coffee faster. So what is going to happen? Now the production is going to be faster. Demand doesn't change. As you see, a new technology is a determinant of supply. Supply shifts to the right. And initially we are P1 and Q1, as you see. As the supply increases, a new equilibrium occurs with the new supply and existing demand. Demand also changes, but through the prices. As the supply increases, price of coffee declines and more people buys coffee. Remember, when the prices change, usually you move along the demand curve. And we have a lower price and higher quantity of coffee consumed and sold in the market. So let's talk about this case, again, coffee market. This time, let's think about, again, cup of coffee, but coffee beans become expensive. So again, when we analyze input prices, we assume that the price of coffee doesn't change and coffee beans are more expensive. That means input prices are higher. So you're selling the coffee at the same price, but now producing the coffee is higher, therefore profit is decreasing. And if that happens, supply of coffee is going to shrink, which shifts to the left. So initially we are here, P1 and Q1. And because of a shift of the supply curve to the left, we end up with P2 and Q2. And because of this change, as we see, prices of coffees are going to be higher in the market, shifts from P1 to P2. And there will be less coffee sold in the market, sold and bought in the market. So these are how we are shifting and analyzing the changes on equilibrium price when demand and supply changes. There are more complicated cases where both demand and supply shifts at the same time, but there should be more events, more than one event, to analyze both changes in supply and demand and how the effect on equilibrium price and effect on equilibrium quantity is summarized on this table. Here you can see one global perspective, and you see that this figure shows the market equilibrium price of a 500 gram or 1.1 pound loaf of white bread, and that price differs substantially across countries, reflecting local differences in supply and demand, as well as government interventions like subsidies to the producers and price ceilings. Foreign prices in this figure are converted to US dollars using current exchange, and Norway seems like the most expensive bread you buy from Norway, and India seems like the cheapest. Now let's apply what we have learned on one concept, which is government set prices, price controls, and in one situation, price ceiling. So what is a price ceiling? Sometimes government thinks about buyers and government controls the prices by setting the price of the product a maximum limit. A maximum limit. Okay, so let's now think about an example, rental market. There is a supply, and for an average one-bedroom apartment, there is supply and demand in the market. Let's assume that the equilibrium price for a rental one-bedroom apartment is on average $1,200. And now government thinks that families cannot pay this money, so restricts this to a legal maximum. Let's say government says the highest you can rent a one-bedroom apartment is $800. So $800 is much below than $1,200, and if any landlord wants to rent the apartment above this price, it's going to be a criminal activity because the highest price you can rent is $800. So this creates a problem. Why? Because this price control is going to shrink the available apartments in the market. You might think as an owner of the apartment, maybe it's not worth to rent $800, maybe it's not even covering the cost of rental place, and therefore you can say I'm going to keep empty. Therefore, the number of apartments available in the market is going to decrease. At the same time, the demand for rental one-bedroom apartment is going to increase. Why? Because now you're thinking $800 is cheap, so you prefer to, as let's say you're a college student and you can rent two of the college student and get one rental apartment. And this creates a shortage. When there is a shortage, you will see that there is a line to rent an apartment, and therefore the resources are not efficiently allocated. So this creates a rationing mechanism, and the reason is when price ceilings are placed on a good, this creates a chronic shortage which makes it difficult to determine how to ration the limited output for all of the customers who are willing and able to buy the good. The shortages usually end up with black markets where the good is sold at a higher price than the price ceiling, and therefore price ceilings distort the efficient allocation of resources. So this is all for this chapter. Thank you for watching this video.